Hello, everybody. Jake, your resident content cowboy here. Yeehaw. I'm joined by the one and only Zoinks. Hello, Zoinks.
What's up?
We have put together a really exciting tier list for you. I am really excited to share this with you. This tier list is not my opinion. It's not Zoinks' opinion. It's not the opinion of some pro player. It's not the opinion of some website. It's the opinion of almost every single team that will be showing up to the World Championships. Multiple players from each team have submitted tier lists to us. Some have submitted team-wide tier lists, and we have now put them all together in a World's qualifying player tier list. The best of the best all got together, and this is what they think of the meta right now. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this tier list plays out, how some of the outliers affect, what happens at Worlds, and how correct some of this is heading into Worlds. Zoinks, first I want to say thank you for helping me put this all together, reach out to so many teams, and then of course organize this into the tier list. Zoinks knows the final tier list right now. I do not. I have some of the information, right? But I tried to stay away from knowing exactly how everything was going to shake out. So I will introduce our tiers to you all really quick. We have our S tier. These are Pokemon that are probably going to be banned out, I would assume, or a few will slip through for some play. We have our A tier. Less of these will be banned unless they're looking at some team-specific bans. High caliber Pokemon here. B tier, you'll see less play, but maybe some specific teams will slot these in. C, D, and E, I think you will see very little play from any of these tiers, while some of our C tier maybe will creep its way in. And then of course we have our EX Pokemon who are all banned. Does that seem about right, Zoinks?
Yeah, honestly shocked we have the B tier, but it's still
there.
We
have the B tier?
Yeah. Sort of break it to you like this. Break it to you? Okay. Yeah, it is gonna be interesting. I know you mentioned the C tier. We might not see too much. However, with the way the format kind of works with how we've built this, it gets a little interesting. So we didn't exactly go with group averages because then so many Pokemon would just end up in the B and C tier because of the push and pull of some regions have different takes on different Pokemon. So instead it's kind of like an election process. So a Pokemon specifically, whatever tier it got the most votes in, that's where it ends up. And there are some interesting Pokemon that are like big coin flips on, like, the East kind of thinks one way, the West thinks another, and there's some Pokemon that are so clearly in one tier, it's kind of absurd. We'll have some fun talking about that, but Spragels, you have not gotten the chance to see the final form of this tier list yet. Obviously, we're about to make it. Do you have any predictions before we get into it? Any Pokemon that you think might surprise the average person watching this video?
I think some of the surprising Pokemon will be things like Urshifu, something that was just buffed. I think people might be surprised where Charizard lands, which I think will be very, very high, probably S tier. I don't want to give too much away because I believe I could guess 90% of this tier list, but I also want to go on a bit of a journey with the audience and kind of see how it plays out. We decided that we are going to start from the bottom and then go all the way up to our S tier. So Zoinks, why don't you tell us about our first E tier Pokemon? Now, do you have them ranked inside the tiers as well, or just in their tier? Okay, perfect.
I do not. I'm quaking in my boots thinking about how much work that would have been. But players had like mixed opinions on if they're like, this is ranked, this is not ranked within the tier. So who's to say? Let's start things out. I think to no one's surprise, but maybe my demise, it is Goodra gonna be the first Pokemon hanging out here. A defender that I looked the other day. I was on good friend of your channel and mine, Husky. We were casting together and someone redeemed the roast my profile thing, and I have like a 60-some% win rate on Goodra and like 300 some games. So I'm fortunate to see it here in the E tier is all I'm saying.
When you said, when you started that whole sentence and you started with a G, I thought for sure we were going Gengar in that E tier, but
do you want to put it there?
Yeah, I'm going to do it right now.
You can add that one too right now. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I'm going to do it right now. But I do have to say, there was a point where teams were kind of toying around with Goodra, so I was wondering if anyone was going to mess with it. But the problem, I think, just lies in the fact that even with 4 bans, we have so many ridiculously powerful Pokemon, and then you can't ban out enough defenders. There's so many high quality defenders after that I just feel like Goodra, unfortunately, will probably only see the light of day if a team already recognizes that they're going home and they're not moving out of the group stage. So we put Gengar up here. I expected this to be very low. Did anyone have it anywhere else?
Yeah, it popped up as high as the C tier. I think there were a few Gengar believers. Oh, apparently that I'm looking. No, just the C tier. Just the C tier. So
I thought you were like, actually it didn't even get that high.
Yeah, I was misreading my list, but it unfortunately just stopped at the C tier. But yeah, I think a Pokemon that Assassins already struggle enough in this game with how bulky the meta is right now with all-rounders, and you add a Pokemon that's pretty dependent on levels. It's a tough mix. Honestly, thinking about Goodra too, just for a second to go back to that Pokemon, it felt like it had its time at Worlds last year. It was like that one meta where it kind of worked, but that's when everyone was playing Defender's Top Path. And I feel like in the competitive game, that's kind of slid away from popularity a bit now. It's just there's too many good top path Pokemon to really consider throwing a defender into that slot. Now that role is kind of out, Pokemon like Top Path Trevenant or Lapras Brawl or Goodra Brawl stocks go down a bit.
Yeah, for sure. Especially after Lapras nerfs, and like Trev's really the only one. Blastoise was another option, but now that's gone. So yeah, let's continue moving on from the E tier. I expect a lot of defenders higher on this list, and I think Speedsters is going to be one of the more interesting categories because we're kind of in a not exciting meta competitively for a lot of the Speedsters. But let's keep up with E.
Okay, let's hit it with the trifecta. Let's get some auto attackers in the mix.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Cinderace, Duraludon, and Dragapult are all gonna be finding themselves in the E tier. There were some standouts. I know we said we're not going to name any names, but there was a Cinderace in S tier on one list. But
yes, I should mention
Dragapult, nowhere close.
We're not going to give away any strategies from any particular teams, right? We wanted to make that very clear that no team was going to share with us any information, and then we were going to immediately be like, SAR is playing Cinders, whatever it is, you know? But yeah, there are a few outliers that were pretty funny. One team has Cinder pretty high. So will it see some play at Worlds? I doubt it.
Yeah, I really do. Oh, man. Yeah, these Pokemon just, unfortunately, not really holding the same. Rapid Fire Scarf's great, but it's not Slick Spoon. So, unfortunately, these auto attackers just not quite holding up the candle. But should we move on to our next pack of E-tier Pokemon?
There's not a ton to say about the auto attackers, but we've been out of an auto attacker meta for a long time. They perform pretty well in non-competitive games, but they're just handled very easily by top teams. So yeah, what's next, Zoinks?
Well, we have another defender in Greedent. Greedent, unfortunately, could not pull itself out of the E tier. It had some tough votes. There were a few believers in Greedent. I will say so much so, this is another one of those Pokemon that just randomly got an S tier vote at one point. A team said, you know what? We believe in this Pokemon, but collectively, as a Worlds competition group, not getting that vouch. A couple other just not super surprising ones here are Scizor, also going to land in this spot. Yeah, shocker.
Well, no, but you know, I actually thought maybe it could be a little higher, but the fact of the matter is, it's a little difficult when you go, this thing's not good enough to ever be picked, so where do I put it? However, I do know that there are a couple tier lists where Scizor is higher. So
it got a B tier vote. It got a B tier vote. It got a C tier vote. It got a plethora of D and E tier votes. But sure. It did have, like I said, a few lone believers. Not many more Pokemon in this list. I want to just double check that I'm not missing anything. One that maybe these two will surprise people. Didn't really surprise me, but Greninja and Azumarill also are going to find themselves in the E tier.
Yeah, when you brought up the other auto attackers, I was wondering if Greninja made it here or made it into the D tier. But
it was a tight race, but yes,
yeah. These don't really surprise me. Azumarill is one of those Pokemon that feels like it's been tried competitively multiple times, and it always it always underwhelms, unfortunately. Greninja's the same thing. You'll have like a cracked Greninja player, like, we're bringing it out in game 2, and then it gets absolutely demolished, and they're like, we're going right back to the old strategy, and we're not using it again. The only, like, looking at the E tier right here, the only Pokemon I could see a team actually trying here is Greedent. Because there are a few teams that tried it in regional qualifiers and won with it, and it's really annoying. But I think, all of these, it will be unlikely we see any of these at Worlds.
Yeah. I'm holding out hope for the Greninja, but yes, I agree. I don't think it's, I do not think it is super likely. Greninja, I think, highest rank ever, getting a C tier vote, but other than that, pretty rough. All right.
Let's move on to our D tier, the Decidueye Memorial tier, a tier named after Decidueye. When it released, it was so bad that now it has its own tier, our D tier, Zoinks.
All right, let's start with Decidueye.
Wow, that low, huh?
D-tier.
Yeah, I can see it, but geez.
A weird split on Decidueye. The West, very low on Decidueye. The East, actually pretty high on that Pokemon in particular.
Really?
It was kind of it was an interesting split. Yeah, I was pretty shocked. Look at the Decidueye votes. Yeah, Decidueye had a couple of A tier votes, a couple of B tier votes.
Okay.
In the East, but nowhere close to that in the West. So
yeah, it's one of those tough ones where it feels like there are other Pokemon, specifically special attackers, that almost do the same job but better. For instance, like Inteleon comes to mind immediately as, why would you have Decidueye as a sniper when you could have Inteleon? And the Unite move, I mean, and Razor Leaf is just cheese, so I feel like if a team brings it out, they're just going to be... It could only work in a wild, like, I can't believe they tried that situation.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, let's get another group of them in there.
Sure.
This one was really interesting to me. Let's hit some special attackers all at once. Pikachu, maybe not the most surprising, but Ninetales and Gardevoir also found themselves in the D tier. Gardevoir seems extremely low to me for how like we've seen it change tournament game results.
Yeah, that's where my brain's at too. I think the thing with Guardy is it feels like Delphox is just... Like, if you're going to run one, you may be running Delphox, but you may not be running either, just to, like, because the meta doesn't feel super like these kind of special attackers right now. But I think a lot of people would rather run Del. And then, of course, you have all the EVs, right? So you have these, like, 4, like, they evolve at 4, and then they unite at 8, which just is really tough to deal with. You've got a scaling. It takes forever to get online. But I always feel like people are kind of sleeping on Guard. I feel like they are. As far as Pikachu is concerned, I guess no one likes it.
Yeah. Hey, Spragels, a fun fact about this also. I just pranked you by accident. I messed up my color scheme, and all 4 of those Pokemon are in fact C tier.
Oh, okay. These are all C.
Yeah,
okay.
I totally made a mistake while reading my list. I'm so sorry.
No, it's no problem. Because I was actually, like, when you said Gardevoir was D, I was like, gosh, that's really low.
I know.
I could see all
myself.
this.
I'm like, oh, this is
I can see all this. All right, well, let's head to our D tier then.
Okay. My apologies. All right. A couple of Pokemon that end up in the D tier are Lapras and Phalanx.
Yeah, we were just talking about Phalanx right before we started recording, and after the nerfs, like I don't think anyone's gonna pick it up. It's not terrible, but when you do get to the highest level of competitive play, man, there are so many all-rounders that are just crazy right now. I feel like you can't even think about something that's not turbo broken. So these two don't surprise me at all. And then Lapras has been just like they nerfed it a lot.
Yeah, they really did. Unite moves still can do some fun stuff, and I think there's like some outlier teams that'll keep trying it, but overall rankings definitely not going to be the same. Another Pokemon that I thought might be a little bit higher due to recent events is Wigglytuff, that is also in the D tier.
So here's the only thing I think. If there's a reality where Cerulege goes through draft, Wiggly is a full counter to this Pokemon. It is literally, you will take its Unite move away, and you will give your team a shield. Like, it is one of the hardest counters in the game to one of the best Pokemon right now. But I guess I'm just thinking, Ceruledge probably is going to have near a 100% ban rate, so maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Spoiler alert for where our Ceruledge might be.
Well, that's just what I guess, right? Like, I didn't look at every list, but if I were to guess, like, you're banning that thing out a ton. Okay.
Let's get a couple more in the D tier. Let's add Meowscarada and Machamp.
Meowscarada is such a disappointment, man. I love Meowscarada. I feel like it didn't get its time in the sun competitively, and speedsters are not really all that right now. And then, of course, Machamp is net. I mean, I'm not surprised at all. If it's played, I think I owe you 10 subs if it's played. Don't I?
I do think that's true. And if it's not, I believe I owe you 10 gifted as well.
Okay,
so
yeah.
That is where we have drawn the line in the sand. You know we're really into it when we're making these decisions off of air.
Yeah, no, it's true.
We're not making content on it. We're literally just talking about it.
Yeah. All right, great. I'm not surprised to see Machamp here. Again, there's the difference between the top all-rounders and the bottom all-rounders feels like there's the Grand Canyon between them. So, yeah.
True. Okay, last Pokemon in this tier is going to be Blastoise.
It's funny. I was even going to say when you brought up Lapras, like, where's Blastoise? There it is.
Yeah, they feel pretty neck and neck. They fill similar roles. The Unite move, obviously, for Blastoise is pretty incredible, but due to some Pokemon near the top of this list, I think that might be the main reason that we're not seeing too much Blastoise.
And the nerfs.
And things like that.
They nerfed Lapras and Blastoise more than they did some of the other tanks. Like when they nerfed Crustle, they took away some of its damage, but none of its usefulness really. It just didn't KO as easily with X Scissor. That's not really that big of a deal. Blastoise, they were like, we're doing this. Like they hit a lot of it. Same thing with Lapras. All right, so now we have more in the C tier, right?
Oh yeah, we got C tier. Actually, one of our more crowded tiers.
All right, fair enough. Hold on.
We have Zeraora in the mix here at the C tier, so maybe a little of the crowded tier. Perfect. You and I share that same.
Zera's this high.
Change the names of my tier. Yeah. A lot of people thinking this Pokemon can be pretty relevant. The Sweet Kiss Comfey build with it, I feel like is finally not troll. It actually feels pretty good. We see some more people playing it. Another Pokemon in this tier that is another very divisive choice is Zarina.
Well, yes. So there are teams that have it low, and there are teams that for sure have it high, because there are some players that never stopped believing in this one. I mean, they're basically in the ban.
Yeah, honestly, if we're comparing East and West tier, Zarina ending up in this tier is almost because the West was pretty unanimous about Zarina in C tier, whereas the East and West was pretty split on Zarina in A or B. So because of the voting, it moves into the C tier. But a Pokemon that I think we are going to actually see quite a bit of at Worlds. It's kind of budget Mimikyu in a lot of ways, and I think we're going to see a ton of that.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Snorlax gonna find its way into the C tier, as well as Scyther. I know they're not super similar, but
they both have S's in their names.
It's alphabetical.
It's a good time to put them in. Snorlax is kind of that middle of the road tank. Some people are really good with it, and it's one of those ones where, hey, if you don't get one of the top defenders, you could lean into this and set up some good plays. And then Scyther is, my personal thoughts on Scyther are some pro players play so well that they think Scyther's good. I think they are better than Scyther. They like its play style, and you can dominate with this thing, but when you're going up against someone else and another team who plays at a very high level, I find we don't see as often the Scyther pop-ups. I feel like it takes advantage of lower skill players, is what it seems like to me.
Okay, yeah, bit of a noob stomper.
A little bit. Well, because you see, a team is like, all right, I'll slow beam it. It's like, okay, well, that's the end of the game. Okay.
That argument could go pretty far, but yeah, you are right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's fill out. I think we have just 2 more all-rounders and 1 speedster in this list.
All right, hold on. Let me try to guess. 2 more all-rounders.
Yes.
Okay.
1 speedster.
I'm trying to think what all-rounders they want to throw down here. Well, Buzz has got to be one.
Buzz is one. Yes.
T-Tar the other.
No.
Shoot. I thought people were going to rate it pretty low. Dang it. Oh, man.
Yeah, it got some help from the East, actually.
Interesting.
Kind of interesting.
All right. Is it Sword?
Is the other all-rounder.
That was the other one in my head. And then one Speedster, you said?
Yeah, one Speedster. This one surprised me with how low it was, for sure.
Which Speedster is it? I mean, my thought is, like, there's no way they put Talon this low, did they?
They did not.
Okay. All right, who is it?
It is Absol.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Do you agree with that? I actually think
it's better.
higher.
I think it's better than this, but
yeah,
I think speedsters in general are not amazing right now. And like, yeah, I think speedsters in general are just not crushing it right now. Like, we probably still have a little love for Dodrio. There are some players who probably think Zoroark is still like at least B. But in general, I think speedsters are just not crushing it in this meta.
Yeah. Yeah, look at stuff out there.
All right.
Surprising. In a bulky meta, you might think the Absol's there, but it's time for your favorite, Spragels.
Don't even say it. All right, here we go.
All right, a couple of supports made their way down to the B tier. I didn't know how highly they'd be rated. The surprising me the most, though, is Blissey and Eldegoss in the B tier. Wait, don't do it. I misread it again.
Yeah, I was about to say there's no way.
That's crazy. Clefable and Comfey in the B tier.
Okay, it's like
it's
better.
Because you chose blue for the B tier on your list, and on my color-coded list, it's blue is A. So it's throwing me for a loop.
Okay.
But Clefable and Comfey in the B tier.
That's pretty reasonable. I wonder if Clefable actually maybe get a little more love than people expect. And then there's Comfey, which is, well, I mean, its heals are pretty good. It got a nice buff. No, obviously no one's gonna play Draining Kiss unless they're already losing the tournament. But and then Comfey is like, it needs the perfect partner. There are a couple good ones right now, but I don't know if you're gonna try to go with both. I don't think you're gonna.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah, that's fair. I think you're onto something there. Okay, how about defenders in this role? Crustle is on that list at this spot. As well as, well, not a defender role, but tank Mr. Mime also finds his way here.
I think so. I know some teams have Mime very high.
Yes. So it's got an S tier vote.
It's got an S tier vote. So I think some teams have Mime very, very high, which does not surprise me. Crustle and Mime, I bet could both see lots of play, because there are other defenders that are going to get banned out for sure.
Yeah.
They could see play.
True. Yeah. Let's add the last supporter onto that list. Sableye will make it to the B tier. You would already pick that Pokemon out. This is one of my favorite facts about this survey that we did. Sableye, one of the only Pokemon to have, I think the only Pokemon, to have a vote in every tier possible.
Whoa!
It got the S tier vouch, and it landed in A, B, C, D, and E amongst all different players' vouches. It's kind of crazy.
It's one of those Pokemon. Sableye almost feels like a Zoroark to me, where it's like, if you have a cracked Sableye player, it's actually a force. It's so annoying to deal with. It's a completely unique way to bring a supporter onto the battlefield. It's different than what you expect. It puts on lots of pressure. It gives your team lots of information. And I think there are a few teams that could really take advantage of it. But with how good teams are at scouting and all that, I think they're going to know, like, hey, this team wants to play Sable, and they might actually see Sable banned against them. So we'll see.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of targeted Sableye bans, like worth it against a lot of these pro teams, right? But all right, 3 attackers in the B tier, and it will be Venusaur, Inteleon, and Glaceon.
Okay, all these are good in their own right, for sure. Inteleon feels low to me, but I know it really has fallen out of favor.
For sure has.
I think maybe it's just because of how much good dive there is from these all-rounders right now. But
it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, it is.
It got hurt by Phalanx being so popular for a while as well. Like, Inteleon really struggled into Phalanx, but now that's kind of flip-flopped. So maybe we'll see Inteleon actually rise up a little bit more because of that. We'll see.
Interesting. Okay. And then Venusaur's a weird one, too, because there was a brief period where Solar Beam was a thing a little bit. And it's actually, like, Sludge Bomb Solar Beam is actually crazy strong right now, but you are a squishy target, and you're kind of easy to get rid of.
It feels like into draft games, like really good teams are going to kind of pick apart a Venusaur.
Yeah.
But yeah, so maybe struggling there. Okay, all rounders in this class. We have Urshifu Single Strike.
Ooh, the big punches.
Tyranitar.
Sure.
The big stomps. Lucario with the slightly less large punches.
Yep.
Garchomp.
Yeah, that feels about right.
Dragonite.
Yes. Dragonite could be a sleeper pick, but you've got to have a team that plays it. Like, you've got to be Kabi-chans. You've got to have the mind meld of the secure, you know? Like, I was
gonna say, not just Kabi-chans, but like a few, like some teams out there that I was like, oh, these are Dragonite teams. Not voting it very high.
Really?
Shockingly. It actually got vouchers from other teams.
Wow.
I was like, oh, weird.
But
okay, yeah, Dragonite maybe on the decline for some players.
It's a frustrating Pokemon to deal with in that if it's ever alone for a second, it has an objective. So, you know, when teams are like good at zoning or good at putting pressure on different points on the map, it feels like Dragonite has a lot of value just walking around being like, that's my Regieleki, that's my Regice. So, yeah, okay.
Yeah. The Unite move's kind of crazy too. I feel like not many people talk about that for Dragonite, like often enough. Like how versatile it is.
Sure.
You can short hop to just like get it back immediately. I don't know. There's a lot of really cool tech with that.
I think the macro that you can get from the Unite move in competitive play is probably so much better than how it feels in other play. And then to speak about Lucario just for a second, obviously Lucario's like, we ran out of our all-rounders, and I played Lucario in Season 1, so let's play Lucario. And then Garchomp's buff is actually pretty good. I think a lot of people, if they have Garchomp as like a kind of a, you know, pocket, like, hey, if I don't get my top lane Pokemon, I can play Garchomp. Garchomp's actually, like, the way you get into Rapid Fire Scarf now can be a single A press, and that's pretty huge.
It's so much better.
Yeah.
I love it. Fun fact about Lucario, did get a single S tier vote.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Someone out there truly believing in Lucario. And to round out the B tier, first, this Pokemon would obviously be in the S tier if it had the correct amount of hats, but Dodrio does end up in the B tier, as well as, who am I missing here? Was another bird Pokemon, Talonflame.
Talon, okay. I think Talon could be a sleeper pick.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think, well...
More than Dodrio?
Yeah, actually.
Whoa.
I think the buffs for Talon are kind of like... Talon has just been creeping up the... Like, it's just been getting little buffs here, little. And now, with its extra speed... Talon feels kind of crazy oppressive. You're really, it's weird. You're all over the map in really annoying ways. It reminds me a lot of a Sableye. So I'm not surprised it's not higher, right? But I do think if there's a team that's like, no, dude, put me on the bird, I think they could do some really gross stuff with it. But I'm not surprised to see Dodrio here. It recently got a nerf, and it actually wasn't even crushing it in the meta. So I believe they only nerfed it to make me mad.
Yeah, they really do not like you, or at least your favorite Pokemon.
It's what look at Greedent, look at Dodrio, look at these things. What are they doing?
I don't know, but as long as they keep buffing my Garchomp, I'm feeling just fine.
I know, yeah, you're doing great. Garchomp stocks keep going up and up and up. Are we moving on to our A tier, Zoinks?
We are. That did round out the B tier. Okay. So, on the A tier, and I am triple checking. I have my list right now before we start talking about it.
Do better than Santa Claus right now. Give it a triple check. I gotta say, like, just looking at it here, there are two Pokemon that I'm kind of surprised got this high. I'm happy to see them here. Okay. But I'm surprised that we have Mamo and Meta this high. And I think they're both pretty good.
It's winning worlds, Spragels. I've tweeted it. I'm manifesting it. Mamoswine is going to be on the winning composition.
Okay.
I truly believe that.
Let's see it.
Okay, so let's set things off with the supports. Blissey and Eldegoss land in the A tier.
Great.
Yeah, they're unbelievably good.
Yeah, the
so
thing about
strong.
supports in this game in general, they're all great. Like, there isn't a support that's bad. There are some that, like, work... there's some that are easier to play around, and then there are some, like, both Eldy and Blissey are awesome. Eldegoss attacks at range, too, which is crazy. Blissey has massive heals, and both of them have, like, a get-out-of-jail-free card to save an ally. In like, you have Bliss Assistance, and then you've got Cotton Cloud Crash, which is amazing. So, yeah, this does not surprise me.
They feel like sometimes that they're only in the A tier and not in the S tier because you're not banning Eldegoss very often. Sometimes you ban Blissey, but normally you're not banning Blissey. So I think that's why they're just sliding down a little bit. Tanks that end up in this spot will be Trevenant, Mamoswine, and I think that is it for the tanks in the A tier. Ice Fang Mamoswine is so strong right now. You compare it with either moveset, it shuts down so many of the meta threats extremely well.
Yeah, it is really, really powerful. I expected to see it high. I thought it was going to be right in the B tier with Crustle. I expected to see it pretty high. This does not surprise me for these defenders, and it also doesn't surprise me for what it means for some of our other defenders. But yeah. Great.
Yeah, Crustle, definitely a solid B tier Pokemon. It felt like both East and West were pretty aligned on that.
Yeah.
And moving up a bit. Okay, let's talk. Let's go with more of this Zoom action. Urshifu Rapid Strike will be in the A tier.
Yeah.
We're gonna see a lot. I'm right with you, by the way.
Yes.
You mentioned it before in this list. We're gonna see so much Blue Shifu.
I think
at
so
Worlds,
too.
I guarantee it. Zoroark made its way up to the A tier. I wasn't sure if it would.
I
about
honestly
it before a Pokemon that's like, I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see about Zoroark.
In-person tournaments and Zoro, they just kind of go hand in hand sometimes.
They really do. I was wondering how much this nerf hurt this Pokemon. So we'll see. We'll see how much Zoroark we see. Maybe people will still think it's good. I don't know if too many people are gonna play it, but maybe we'll find out.
Okay, a couple of all-rounders in this list that will be Metagross.
Yes.
And Gyarados.
Yep. Yeah, this seems about right. I think Gary's doing really well. I think Meta's been slept on quite a bit for a long time. And, you know, the bulkier a meta is, the more kind of like fighting you're going to be doing, the better Metagross does. I mean, it's just got to hit 2 Pokemon to get a shield that's absurd. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I like it a lot. I have been noticing a weird thing with Gyarados. I don't know about you, but I've seen way more Waterfall Gyarados in tournaments. Have you been seeing any more of that? I don't know. It's been more and more popular.
I've been such a Waterfall believer since the change.
I know you have.
I know, but I'm just saying it's one of those things where it's nice to see people like start to grab onto something that you've been sort of like, dude, I think this is actually pretty good, but nobody does it. And it depends on like how much crowd control is on the other side. But it's a crazy dash with like multiple benefits to it, and it puts you in position to hit some really big stuff. So I could see people playing it too. It's really good. It's really, really good.
Yeah. Nothing escapes you like from getting KO'd, right? And in a metagame where heals and like damage reduction is so strong, like Eldegoss, Blissey, Umbreon, like sometimes you're watching someone walk away from a team fight with 1 HP and you're so frustrated you can't close that gap. Gyarados can fix that with Waterfall. But last all-rounder out of this list, I didn't mention it in the last bunch, will be Mimikyu. Did not make it to the S tier, fell into the A tier. I was pretty shocked about that. This Pokemon is unbelievable right now.
I actually agree with it being A. I think in the hands of the right player, they're cracked on it. Like, look, we're looking A tier. These are all insanely good Pokemon. You know, you could win worlds with an A tier Pokemon.
Mammo's gonna do it.
And yeah, exactly. But I do think Mimikyu is outshined by a few of the other kind of choices that feel similar in the role. And I also think, I could be wrong, it's just like, you know, it's the lens that we see the world through. Perception is our reality. I perceive that Mimikyu doesn't win as many games at a high level that people think it does. Like, I see people are cracked on it. I just don't see it winning games. Whereas there are other Pokemon like Blaziken where I'm like, that thing wins games. Like, consistently, Blaziken wins games. Like, so... But anyway, there you go. That's my little rant on Mimikyu. I think it's amazing, but I also don't think it's S.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it's one of my personal favorite Pokemon to play, but yeah.
Dude, so good. It's so fun.
So fun. Okay, let's talk attackers. Chandelure.
Yeah.
Cramorant.
Yeah.
Delphox.
Yeah.
Espeon.
Yeah.
Mew.
Yeah.
And Sylveon.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot of attackers made their way up.
A lot of attackers. Shandy is interesting.
Imprison is just good enough to shut down Blaziken.
Yep.
And I feel like that alone puts you in A tier.
Shandy's a weird one. I think either people, I think this might be a little recency bias. Maybe people should have just been giving this thing a look before, because the changes are not very significant, and it was not getting a lot of play, and and it wasn't winning a lot. So for me, like,
not in every region, it's been dominating Brazil since like Eos Cup.
Okay.
That region has had Chandelure in its like grand finals every single month. It's crazy.
Okay, you're right. Yeah, every region is different, which is one of the coolest things about this tier list.
Yeah, 100%.
Because for me, like, and I get how good Chandelure can be. Like, I think Delphox is so, like, I think it's better. Like, I think it's a tier better. I kind of feel like Inteleon should be a tier higher, but still, we'll see. Shandy could be the truth at Worlds. And then we have Sylveon. I was wondering what was going to happen with Sylvie. It got nerfed, and sometimes when a Pokemon is like, I feel like Sylveon was being used as such an annoyance. Sometimes a little nerf like that can make you go, actually, this doesn't feel as annoying anymore. And then all of a sudden you just don't see it. So it's interesting to see it so high. I don't think it will be a first pick anymore, but yeah.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, one of those just impossible to knock out Pokemon. Mew and Sylveon kind of filled that role. They're really good at being attackers and doing that damage. I'm shocked that Espeon got this high. I am really shocked that it is all the way in the A tier. That feels like B, maybe even C to me.
I think people sleep on Espeon a lot.
I guess me.
I
don't know.
Well, maybe, but I could be wrong too. Like, I actually think Espeon's better than Chandelure. But you know, again, we're talking about really great Pokemon, and you do get to a point where, you know, I think back to Team YT at the final stretch, and they made Alola, Ninetales, and Gardevoir look like A tier choices. So
100%.
I really do think they're just shades of like personal preference with a lot of this. Like, I think Mew is probably still an A tier pick, but I also think there are teams that can't play it at all. So for them, it's like D tier, you know, E tier. And I think like for these attackers that we're looking at, like Shandy, Cram, Espeon, Delphox, it really is like, what is this attacker player's sort of bread and butter?
Yes. Oh, for sure. I completely agree. Hey, not for nothing, Chandelure, decent matchup in the Charizard. You just blind him as soon as he unites, you know?
Right.
Mew can do something similar with their Unite move. I feel like a lot of these prio picks on the attackers are slotting in because of the other metagame threats. But
yeah, that's a great point, because they both do counter Char in some really fun ways.
All right, well, that will end our A tier. So the remaining Pokemon make it to S tier. Of course, we're going to hit a lot of, no surprises. One that was very interesting for me to see play out as I was adding up the numbers, and we'll start with that one, is Slowbro.
Oh,
so Slowbro made it to the S tier. Thank the West for that. East are putting this thing pretty much all in B, some A. Like, Slowbro down, I know, I was like really shocked. A lot of A and B tier votes for Slowbro. And then Umbreon, the other defender here. That unanimous.
I think Umbreon is crazy, dude.
It's so good right now.
Umbreon is so good. Slowbro being A would make sense to me. Being B just seems odd. Like, I mean, look, everyone's got their own strategy. First of all, I will say there are some teams that play Trevenant so well, they'd be like, we would never take Slowbro. Are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
Like,
or Mamo.
And I just think, I think there are teams that do so well with some of these other picks that I can see Slowbro being a little lower. But the Slowbro buffs are nice. Like the Surf buff in particular, the Surf buff is kind of crazy great.
Yes.
And Slow Beam is still one of the best shutdown tools where you have a meta of Pokemon that you need to figure out a way to isolate one of them. Of course, we have a Pokemon that's an answer to that, which is kind of crazy on this list. But Umbreon. Do you know which Pokemon on this S tier is the like most S tier votes? Do you have an idea of what that would be?
I think it's a tie from what I had.
Okay, cool. Just curious.
It is in the West, it is like a dead heat for a few of them. It's basically a tie. It's a tie between these three. Okay. And we'll add them. The Charizard, Ceruledge, and Blaziken. These three Pokemon are basically in a dead heat. I think, if I was to look back at it, it might have been like a slight Blaziken edge in all of this, but these three Pokemon, very far and away S tier advocated Pokemon.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to see this. It's funny, like when Charizard got the buffs, and I remember doing a tier list after it, talking about Charizard being S tier, and people were like, really? Just because of its Unite move? And I'm like, yeah, kinda. Like, it kinda is that big. Like, imagine if Serena's Unite move could never be canceled. Everyone would easily move it up a tier, maybe even more, just for that little change. But Charizard's Unite move was such a liability for this Pokemon for so long. And now it's not only can it not get canceled, now it can stop other, like, unbelievable things. It can stop Cram, it can stop Slowbro, it can stop Mimikyu, it can, like, it does really ridiculous stuff. So it's like it has this utility. Not only does it have this like crazy utility, it's also pretty dang strong right now. So I love seeing Char so high. Blaziken is I wonder, like, do we get to see any of these Pokemon at Worlds?
I know.
Who's gonna let a Blaziken, Charizard, or Ceruledge slip through? I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen some Charizard slip through. Mostly because I think one of the most popular drafts we are going to see at Worlds, like as we see it all play out, will be a Charizard first pick into a Umbreon Blissey or Umbreon Hoopa orange side pick. I think that will be extremely popular, specifically Umbreon Hoopa, because both of those Pokemon play incredibly well into Charizard. Speaking of which, the final Pokemon on the S tier will be Hoopa and Leafeon. Gonna make it into the S tier as well.
I'm surprised to see Leafeon here. Not that it's not great. I was wondering if we were kind of like done with Leafeon being this S tier choice. It almost feels like maybe for a few teams it will be, and there are some like possible Worlds winners who could be one of those teams, right?
Oh yeah.
But I don't know if overall I feel like Leafeon is this high. I love seeing Hoopa this high. I have to say that. Like, that's really cool.
Every Worlds it feels like Hoopa just gravitates back to the top of the meta, and it will be relevant again. I don't know. Every World Championships from here to the end of time, I think we'll have Hoopa as a part of it.
Is there anything, Zoinks, when you're looking at this tier list all put together that was kind of the most shocking to you? Like, as the tier list started to come in, I'm trying to not look at any of them and stuff. That I thought, I was like, I wonder where this is going to be, and then I started to convince myself it would be pretty high, was Water Bear. Which is cool. Sure. I'm kind of shocked to see teams giving so much love to Metagross and stuff like this. But yeah, what is there anything on here where you're like, man, this is a bit of a shocker to me, or is this about what you'd expect?
I mean, it's close to what I expect. I think there was a few we talked about in the midst of it that I was kind of surprised to see go one way or the other. Absol, I was pretty shocked to see so low. I think that's a Pokemon that could be way higher. I actually think Buzzwole should be higher too. I think a lot of people are just looking at the grass is greener. I think that Pokemon's still pretty solid. Stuff that went too high though, yeah, I think Metagross, and I already talked about Espeon. I know it's just solid, but it feels like you could just do so much better in that attacker role than Espeon, so I'm pretty shocked to see it there. But maybe those are my outliers that I am surprised to see where they are.
Awesome. Well, there you go, everybody. This is your world's tier list. Again, this was voted. We got a hold of as many teams and players as we could. We got almost every single team that will be competing at Worlds to submit one or more, like multiple tier lists to put this together. So this is going to give you a really good indicator of what's going on, not only at Worlds, but what's happening in this meta. These are what the best players in the world think about this meta. So if you're like, no, actually, you know, Greninja is great. Well, I mean, there are a lot of really good players who don't think so. That's all I'm saying. Looking at this. Any final thoughts looking over our tier list here, Zoinks?
I'm so excited to see this play out. I mean, I know we've tried to make a consensus, but the fact of the matter is there are so many varying results from these lists that came in. That just makes World so exciting. Like, it's going to be awesome. We're going to see very weird regional identities clash up against even stranger ones. So I'm stoked.
I'm so unbelievably excited too. I'm also excited that next year, all of those Pokemon down in that EX list will no longer have that title near them. And given their relative power state, honestly, I think except Ho-Oh, maybe all of them could kind of play right now. I think most of them would hang in the S tier, honestly, but I think all of them could play right now. So I'm excited to see the legendaries play without this silly tag that's been on them for so long. Just like looking at the list, my brain's like, get them out of there. Like, let them play, baby. I want to thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. I want to thank you once again, Zoinks, for helping me put this all together and bringing it to everybody. Thank you very much. Of course, if Machamp is played in earnest at Worlds, now I owe you 10. So it has to be played in earnest, okay? It can't be played. It can't be played when the team's already done with the tournament. That does not count. That is not playing it in earnest, and you know it. All right. Thank you all. I love you. We'll see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Oh, sorry. And thank you. Really, thank you to all the teams. I really appreciate it. So many teams came through. And I know that people, like, their Japanese players were like, hey, I don't really know you. Please don't leak my strategy. So I just want to say really sincerely thank you to all the teams who provided, like, so much. Thank you very much. All right, goodbye.